Greek temples stand as timeless monuments to the gods, their majestic columns and intricate designs celebrating the power of mythology and ancient artistry. In Greece, the Parthenon atop the Acropolis in Athens is perhaps the most iconic of all, drawing millions of admirers each year. But did you know that some of the finest examples of Greek-inspired temples exist outside of Greece? Across continents, ancient ruins and modern recreations pay homage to these architectural wonders. From war memorials inspired by the grandeur of the gods to ancient sites where mythology meets history, these temples reveal how Greek culture spread and evolved far from its origins. What stories do these temples tell, and how do they capture the essence of Greece so far from home? First stop, Nashville, Tennessee. You're probably thinking, isn't that the country music capital of the world? It absolutely is, but it's also home to a full-scale replica of the Parthenon, complete with a breathtaking statue of Athena inside. Standing an impressive 42 feet tall, Athena is the largest indoor statue in the United States. She is gilded in real gold, holding a small figure of Nike, the goddess of victory, in her hand. It's as if she stepped out of ancient Greece and decided to make Nashville her home. The story of how this temple came to be is just as fascinating. Back in 1897, Nashville was hosting the Tennessee Centennial Exposition. At the time, the city was proud of its nickname, the Athens of the South, because of its focus on education and culture. To celebrate that reputation, they built a temporary replica of the Parthenon. But people loved it so much, they couldn't bring themselves to tear it down. Decades later, in 1931, they replaced the original structure with a permanent one. And while the Parthenon was there from the beginning, the statue of Athena took a bit longer to join the party. Over time, donations added up, and by 1982, construction on Athena began. It wasn't until 2002 that the statue was fully completed in all its golden glory. Imagine the patience and dedication that went into making this dream a reality. If you've seen the movie Percy Jackson and the Olympians, The Lightning Thief, you might remember the Parthenon in Nashville. It plays a key role in one of the scenes. Honestly, the Greek gods and goddesses themselves would probably be impressed by this stunning replica. And if you ever visit, you'll find it nestled in Centennial Park at 2600 West End Avenue, surrounded by lush greenery that makes the whole place feel almost otherworldly. Now, let's hop across the Atlantic to Italy, where you'll find a mix of ancient Greek and Roman temples that have stood the test of time. One of my favorites is the Temple of Castor and Pollux in Rome. This one has a fantastic story behind it. According to legend, it was built to honor Castor and Pollux, the twin sons of Zeus, after they helped the Roman Republic defeat the Latin League at the Battle of Lake Regillus in 495 BCE. How did they help, you ask? Well, the story goes that they appeared during the battle, fully armored and riding horses, turning the tide in favor of the Romans. After the victory, the temple was erected in their honor. Castor and Pollux are pretty fascinating figures in mythology. They're known as the Dioscuri in Greek mythology or the twins of Gemini. But their origin story is even wilder. Zeus, disguised as a swan, seduced their mother, Leda. That same night, she was also with her husband, King Tyndareus of Sparta. The result? 2 sets of twins, Castor and Pollux, and their siblings, Helen of Troy fame and Clytemnestra. Talk about family drama! Today, only 3 columns remain of the Temple of Castor and Pollux, but they're still impressive, standing tall in the Roman Forum. It's easy to imagine how grand the temple must have been when it was first built. You can almost picture the Dioscuri themselves watching over the city from this spot. And we can't talk about temples in Italy without mentioning the Pantheon in Rome. This one is a bit different because it combines a traditional Greek-style front with a massive domed hall behind it. The Pantheon is dedicated to all the gods of ancient Rome, but this design draws heavily from Greek architecture. The most amazing thing about this temple is that it's still intact. Its dome has an open oculus at the center, letting sunlight stream in and creating a magical atmosphere. The building is so well preserved that it feels like stepping back in time. You'll find the Pantheon in Piazza della Rotonda, one of Rome's most charming squares, surrounded by lively cafes and bustling streets. Now, you've probably heard about Pompeii, famously frozen in time after Mount Vesuvius erupted in 79 CE, but did you know that the Temple of Apollo is one of its most striking landmarks? This temple dates back to at least the 6th century BCE, making it one of the oldest in the region. It was dedicated to Apollo, the god of prophecy, music, and healing. Imagine walking through this place, surrounded by the quiet ruins of a city that has been preserved for centuries. It almost feels as if the gods themselves wanted us to remember Pompeii. The Temple of Apollo has an open courtyard, once filled with statues and columns, that still holds a magical charm. Standing there, you can't help but wonder what life was like when this city thrived and what rituals might have taken place to honor Apollo. Heading further south, we arrive at Paestum, an ancient Greek city near Salerno. Paestum is home to 3 incredible temples, each more inspiring than the last. The Temple of Hera, built around 650 BCE, is one of the oldest surviving Greek temples anywhere. It's not just the history that makes this site special, it's also the stories tied to it. For example, fans of classic Greek mythology movies might recognize Paestum from Jason and the Argonauts. Remember the scene where Phineas tries to eat only to be attacked by harpies? That was filmed here. Even without Hollywood's touch, the site is spectacular. The temple's massive Doric columns make you feel tiny, and you can easily imagine it in its original glory. Paestum is also home to the Temple of Athena and the Temple of Poseidon, which many call the Temple of Neptune. These temples are part of a UNESCO World Heritage Site that includes the ruins of Paestum and the nearby city of Velia. Walking through these ruins feels like stepping into a time machine, especially when you think about how they've been standing since the days when myths and gods ruled the world. Now let's talk about Sicily, a treasure trove of ancient Greek temples. The western part of the island alone is home to so many that you could spend days exploring them. Start with Agrigento, known as the Valley of the Temples. This archaeological wonderland features 7 ancient temples, including one dedicated to Heracles. The poet Pindar once called the nearby city of Acropolis the most beautiful city of mortals, and standing here, it's easy to see why. Don't miss the Regional Archaeological Museum, which adds even more depth to your visit. It's like getting to know the stories behind the stones. Next, there's the Selinunte, a site perched high above the sea. It's the largest archaeological park in Europe and one of the most breathtaking places to see Greek ruins. If you visit in the spring, the wildflowers blooming all around make the experience almost dreamlike. It's no wonder so many visitors leave saying Selinunte is their favorite spot in Sicily. A short trip away is Segesta, home to another stunning temple. The Temple of Segesta is a masterpiece of Doric architecture, and its location is as mysterious as it is beautiful. Surrounded by hills and wide open spaces, it feels like the perfect place for gods to dwell. You can't help but feel a sense of peace and wonder as you stand there, imagining how this temple once brought people together. Next, we reach Syracuse, a city with deep roots in Greek history. Founded in 733 BCE by settlers from Corinth, Syracuse was once a rival to Athens itself. It's hard to overstate its importance. Cicero even called it the greatest of all Greek cities. Syracuse was home to the legendary mathematician Archimedes, and was a place where the philosopher Plato once worked. The Temple of Apollo, one of its most prominent landmarks, dates back to the early 5th century BCE. But Syracuse doesn't stop there. It also has a Temple of Athena, which was built in the same century and later incorporated into a cathedral. Walking through Syracuse feels like flipping through the pages of an ancient storybook. In Australia, the Shrine of Remembrance in Melbourne stands as a powerful and solemn tribute to soldiers who gave their lives in war. At first glance, it might seem like a typical war memorial, but look closer and you'll see its resemblance to ancient Greek temples. Built in the 1930s, the design of the shrine is heavily inspired by the Parthenon in Athens, with clean, symmetrical lines and a commanding presence. At its heart lies the Stone of Remembrance, a marble slab inscribed with the words, "Greater love hath no man." Every year on November 11th, at exactly 11 o'clock a.m., a ray of sunlight passes through an opening in the roof to illuminate the word love. This incredible moment symbolizes sacrifice and remembrance, tying together human emotion and celestial design in a way that feels almost divine. The connection to Greece here runs deeper than just architectural inspiration. During World War I, over 60,000 Australian soldiers fought at Gallipoli in Turkey, a place steeped in its own ancient Greek history. Around 8,000 of them lost their lives, a staggering loss that still echoes in Australian memory. The Trojan War, with all its drama and tragedy, might seem like a story for the ages, but the real-life sacrifice at Gallipoli was far more devastating. Standing at the shrine of remembrance, you can feel how the echoes of ancient Greece have shaped even modern acts of commemoration. Next, we head to Turkey, a country that bridges the worlds of Greece and the East. Here in Ephesus, you'll find the ruins of the Temple of Artemis, once one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. Though the temple itself is long gone, the site still holds a sense of wonder. Walking along the ancient pathway, you can almost feel its presence, as if the goddess Artemis is watching over this sacred ground. Ephesus is also home to the Celsus Library, an architectural masterpiece that reminds us of the grandeur of the ancient world. While not a temple, it complements the site's deeply historical and mythological atmosphere. Further north in Turkey is Pergamon, an ancient Greek city that grew in prominence during the reign of Alexander the Great. When Pergamon reached its peak, it rivaled Athens itself, and even boasted a massive temple dedicated to Zeus. Perched on an Acropolis high above the city, the altar was adorned with intricate friezes depicting epic battles between gods and giants. Sadly, much of this treasure is no longer in Pergamon. It was taken to Germany in the late 19th century and is now on display in the Pergamon Museum in Berlin. Visiting the museum offers a chance to see these incredible carvings up close, but it's hard not to imagine how magnificent the altar must have looked in its original setting, overlooking the ancient city. Finally, let's visit Cyprus, where the Temple of Aphrodite in Paphos awaits. This site has a history that stretches back to the 13th century BCE, making it one of the oldest locations connected to Greek mythology. Paphos was a major center for worshipping Aphrodite, the goddess of love and beauty, and the temple was her sanctuary. Though little of the temple remains today, the ruins speak of a time when pilgrims came from far and wide to pay homage to the goddess. One of the most fascinating parts of Paphos is the House of Aeon, where a mosaic depicts a mythical flute contest between Apollo and Marsyas. This small detail adds a touch of whimsy to a place that otherwise feels deeply reverent. Thank you for joining us today. Now, if you enjoyed this journey through history, make sure to like this video, leave a comment to share your favorite temple, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell so you'll be the first to know when we dive into more amazing stories like this one. And until next time, keep exploring the wonders of our world.